This is Reggie Kelly, former Cincinnati Bengals and Atlanta Falcons tight end, and you're listening to TNT, Thursday Night Tailgate. Brace yourself for the explosion.
And now back with us on the Kyvan Foods guest line is Nick Ferguson. Let me remind you about Nick's background. He is from Miami, Florida. Started out his college career at Morris Brown and later transferred to Georgia Tech, where he was a walk-on. He was Tech's Freshman of the Year in 1993. In 95, he led their defensive backs and tackles and was fourth overall on the team. He would later go back to Georgia Tech and finish up his college degree in 2005. He was an undrafted free agent signed by the Cincinnati Bengals in 1996, and he played professional football from 96 to 2009 in the NFL, the CFL, NFL Europe, and the United Football League for teams like not only the Bengals, the Saskatchewan Roughriders, the Rhein Fire, Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Chicago Bears, Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, and the Omaha Nighthawks. Over the course of his NFL career, he had 403 tackles, 7 interceptions, 6 fumbles, and had 1 sack. He is now a regular contributor over on the No Huddle Show on TuneIn.com, hosted by our friends Brian Weber and Cordell Stewart. Their show airs live every Monday through Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time. And we're glad to have Nick back with us tonight here on Thursday Night Tailgate. Hey, Nick, Chris, and Bob, thanks for coming back on the show.
Welcome back, Nick.
Hey, Chris and Bob. How's it going, my friends?
Oh, very good, Nick.
Thank you.
But I understand, Nick, you're at an NFL gala. At least you were tonight back out there in L.A. What's going on?
Well, NFL Network was throwing this big bash for the guys on their show who are all Hall of Famers. Kurt Warner, LaDainian Tomlinson, Michael Irvin. There was Marshall Falk and Terrell Davis. So it was a great event. A lot of media came out. And they were just pretty much kind of trying to highlight these guys and validate them for everything that they did on the field because to play in the NFL is definitely an honor. Every guy wants to wear that gold jacket and end up in Canton, but we all know only a couple of guys would kind of get that opportunity. So it was great to see some of these guys. And I mean, I played in golf tournaments with LaDainian Tomlinson and Marshall Falk, but as Marshall was quick to remind me, he asked me, have I been working on my golf game? And I told him, hey, listen, like I told you before, I don't play, I participate. And there's an entirely different, idea when you're playing golf. But it was a great event.
So, Nick, I want to kind of go back to some of your time in the league and get your thoughts. You played your first 3 seasons, with the Jets. And when you look at that franchise now, right, a team that was 1 win away from the playoffs just a couple of years ago to a team that now is really starting all over again. Where do you think the Jets go from here?
It's hard to say because it's hard, as I often tell people, you can't play chess with checker pieces. And to me, that's what the NFL is. And that's not a discredit to any of the guys who are on the Jets roster. But to be really competitive, I mean, you have to have a core group of guys that are seasoned, that have been playing together for a while. And as though it's often said, and it is a cliche, but it is true, you need the ideal guy under center to make plays for you. And right now, McCown is not that guy. He's just kind of a bridge. And you have Christian Hackenberg and Bryce Petty. So it's really difficult if you're a Jets fan right now. No Eric Decker, no Brandon Marshall. So it is kind of, it looks very bleak for them right now. And I feel for my former defensive back coach, who's now the head coach, and Todd Bowles, because it's just like, well, what do I have to work with? Quincy Nunwa, we thought that, well, maybe he would be the one shining light on that team, and now he suffered a season-ending injury. So it's now like, where do we go from here? So all you can do is just go out there for the next 16 weeks, play your heart out, hope to be in some games in the fourth quarter, and maybe you can pull out some of those games because maybe your opponent has underestimated you. But right now, it's about building for the future, looking to 2018, and hopefully we can get some players in that draft to make the team more competitive.
And you mentioned the phrase a moment ago, ideal guy under center. And, Nick, I want to get your thoughts on the Broncos because they've made the decision to go with former 7th-round pick Trevor Simien at quarterback this year. What do you think that means for Paxton Lynch and his future in Denver?
basically what that says is he's not ready yet. And I know that's when you say he's not ready, and knowing that the Broncos moved up in the draft to pick up Paxton, it's very disappointing from their standpoint, because you got to think about it. In 2012, Brock Osweiler was the quarterback that was drafted to now be the face of the franchise. And he's not there, and he has his issues in Cleveland right now. They're shopping him. And then Paxton come in and kind of built in that same type of mode, a 6'7" quarterback, strong arm. He's very mobile and able to get out the side of the pocket and make some plays. But somehow his maturation process and his growth has been slowed. I don't know what has been the cause of it, but I thought coming into the season he would fare well, because both he and Trevor Simien would be on equal playing fields, because they would be learning Mike McCoy's offense at the same time. And that didn't seem to be the case. And when you talk to the Denver Broncos, the guys on either side of the ball, they feel as though Trevor gives them the best chance to win, even though when you talk to most people, he's viewed as being average at best. But to me, you can be average, but it's about the confidence that the guys in the room, have for you and your ability to go out and perform and do your job and what's needed. So Trevor gives them the best opportunity right now. As far as long term, if Paxton doesn't show signs next year or towards the end of the season like he's really ready to push Trevor Simien, then that means now you go into 2018 having to admit that you made a mistake, and now you have to go and try to find another guy to be the face of your franchise.
Bob, questions for Nick?
Nick, playing 3 years in New York like you did, we hear a lot about players that have come and gone. It can be a very tough place to play, Nick. The big city, a lot of nightlife, etc. I mean, is that something that was ever an issue for you, Nick? Did you ever partake in it? And what kept you grounded those 3 years?
Well, no, I was never that type of player. And, you guys led in with my story and how I kind of got into the league. I didn't come from a family with money. I grew up in the inner city, and I learned hard work by watching my mom work and try to raise 5 kids on her own. So to me, that was my frame of mind. But also when I left Buffalo, I came across a guy by the name of Bill Parcells. And he sat me down in a room, and, he was a guy, I knew his persona when I got there. I was a little nervous being around him because he puts a lot of pressure on his players, because he wanted to see if you can handle the pressure that the NFL is going to put on you. And he just kind of, we just talk life. We talk football. And he was just like, as long as you stay on that road of hard work, you will definitely be okay. And he was just like, well, some people are motivated by different things when you're in the NFL. Some motivated by money and fame, some motivated by fear. And for him, he was just like, well, you have to find what that is and twist it. And for me, I just kind of lean on his teaching. I didn't really need to be out late at night to have people know that I'm a football player. I mean, that was my job. It wasn't a hobby. I wasn't in college. I'm not playing an amateur sport. This is my job. So it was all about sacrifice and dedication. And he said, well, if you do those things, you'll play in this league 10 years. And I listened to everything he said, and I ended up playing 10 years in the NFL. So going out, hanging out, and partying, and other players did that, and I'm not knocking them for that, but that wasn't me. My job is, I want to be the best player that I can be, and sometimes you make sacrifices. I tell players now, you have to determine, what sacrifice that you want to make and determine how good you want to be. And Herman Edwards used to say all the time, either you want to be good or you want to be great. So some of those things you have to let go. And at the end of the day, when your career is over, you want to be able to say that you went out there every Sunday, Monday, or Thursday, and you gave it everything you had. You don't want to say, well, I went out boozing the night before and I came to practice and I wasn't all together. That when I got in the game, I had no idea what the game plan was. So to me, no. And I didn't want to put any of that kind of bad film on tape. I really didn't want to do that. So for me, it was all about the game and all about trying to live the right life and, show young kids this is how you should be a professional, because at the end of the day, you have to remember this. There are 3 all-important letters in the word professional. It's P-R-O, and that, for me, that's what I needed to be a pro.
And Nick, when you moved to Denver after that 2002 season, two-part question, did you have trouble, or tell us about the learning curve of getting used to the mile-high air? Part two, did the team always consider that to be an advantage against opponents that came into Mile High?
Absolutely. I mean, in Miami, they have the heat, and cold weather teams like the Green Bay Packers, they use the weather to their advantage. So definitely in Denver, the altitude was so important. I mean, you got to think, people talk about the game of football. It is more mental than it is physical. And just kind of give you an idea, when opponents come to Denver, they are sure to pose in their locker room and assign, when they walk out of their locker room, 528 feet above sea level. So you know exactly where you are. So when you start breathing heavy and you can't breathe and you're looking for the oxygen on the sideline and it's not there, you know you're in Denver, Colorado. So you play to that. That's why when I was there under Mike Shanahan, sometimes we would go to hurry up offense. To kind of, make sure that you can't get your substitutions in. And, those big guys up front, they get tired and they start leaning on the offensive linemen. That's why, year after year, not just due to, great technique from the offensive line and where they were coached by Alex Gibbs and having great running backs that played to the scheme, but the fact that you wore down the defense. They were tired. And if you don't utilize that to your advantage, then, you're missing out on something. And Rich Tootin was our strength and conditioning coach while we was there in Denver. And you would have to get in shape to get in shape. So that means everything you did that offseason away from Denver really didn't matter because it took you at least almost a month to get acclimated to the altitude. So I know teams that were coming in, on the flight and they were only there for one day. I mean, they were breathing heavy. I mean, I can tell you there were some games that we played and we played against the New York Jets one time, my former team, and I was on the sideline saying, man, this is the easiest game I've ever played. And that was all due in part because of the altitude.
Nick, as I mentioned in your intro, you were an undrafted free agent. Talk about what you were able to do with the Jets. How did you gain the attention of the coaching staff in order to make the team?
Well, the one thing that helped me, I went to a great institution down in Atlanta, Georgia, called Georgia Tech. And because I went to that institution, there was a lot of respect for the academic quality, So if I can go to Georgia Tech to deal with the schoolwork and play, then I should be able to deal and handle the playbook that they're putting in front of me. And that playbook is pretty big, and it changes every week depending on the opponent. But, that was kind of the first part. The other part was just, hard work. They want to see that you're going to go out and you're going to sacrifice. You're going to do the right things that are required by the team to make sure that they are successful. And, you have to study. I don't care how talented you are, how fast you are. If you don't know the playbook, it's going to be hard for a coach to play you because the first thing he's going to say is, I can't play you if I don't trust you. So while there might have been other guys who were faster than I was, who might have gone to schools who from programs with multiple SEC or, Big Ten or, Pac-12 championships, the one thing that they lacked was that work ethic. What are you willing to put in? I mean, you can't ask to go out there every Sunday and say, well, I'm going to hit a switch and I'm going to be able to play. No, did you prepare yourself well during the week? And that's the one thing every coach, no matter where I played, they knew that they had in me as a player that I am going to make sure that I know everything that I need to know about my opponent. So when I went into that game, I was ready to play.
So, Nick, I got to ask you, you look at, year 2000, during week 13, you get your first interception, your first NFL interception off of Peyton Manning. Is that playing on a highlight somewhere in a den so, like when the fellas come over, they can see that thing looping so you can point that out?
You know what? No, I don't. I'm a really modest guy, and some people would tell you, like, we couldn't even believe that Nick Ferguson was even an NFL player because he didn't act that way. He didn't lead himself and his life in that manner. But it was a great play for me. No, it's not in the loop somewhere. But this season, I will put that out on social media. It is a huge part of my life and my early success. And I can tell you in that game, playing Peyton Manning, the interception it's huge. You playing in New York, and that's when I first got a taste of the idea of what life could actually be like for a player playing in New York and you're on the winning team. We beat the Colts 41-0, and I think that I could be wrong, but I think that's probably maybe the worst loss that Peyton has suffered. The only one that may be closer is when the Broncos lost to Seattle in a Super Bowl. So to be a part of that history and my first interception to be off a Hall of Fame player like Peyton Manning, that's extraordinary. And for me, it was something that validated all the hard work that I endured trying to get to the NFL, trying to stay there to say, well, here's a play that this kid out of the inner city of Miami made against one of the best quarterbacks to ever lace them up. So for me, I take pride and pleasure in it, but this will be the first year that I even, make notice of it and post it on social media. But it is an important part of my NFL career.
Nick, before we let you go, remind our listeners, how can they stay up to date with all the great things that you're doing, whether it's online or over social media?
Well, you can always find me on Facebook, Nick A. Ferguson, and you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at @NickFerguson_25. And as we approach a new 2017 NFL season, you can find me on NFL on TuneIn, First and Goal every Sunday with Brian Weber.
There you go. Nick, thank you so much for taking time out of your night to come back on the show. It's always great for Bob and I to get to spend some time for you. Hopefully we get to catch up with you once the season gets started. Thanks for being here.
Hey, anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
Take care, Nick. That is former Jets, Broncos, and he played for several other teams. But you want to talk about a talented defensive back that played back not all that long ago. Boy, Nick Ferguson had a lot of talent, and to his credit, as he talked about the smarts of someone coming out of Georgia Tech, a guy that came out and then went back and then finishing his college degree. So I give Nick tons of credit for having gone back and fulfilled a promise to get his degree. He did that back in 2005. So Bob, always good to spend some time with Nick.
It's very impressive, Chris, when you hear about his humble beginnings and to end up in the big city. A lot of guys just get eaten up, but he was on track from the very beginning, and big success story.
All right, we've got our next guest, Randy McMichael, hanging on the line. We'll get to Randy after this quick station break.